So last time we created the frame of the toolbox, the front panel and the shelf. Now, of course, last time when we did do this, we had a bit of an issue where the drawer would not fit in properly. Thankfully, I solved that problem with a little bit of sanding paper. Obviously, if I was to print this again, I'd probably just take probably about 1/2 mil off in the track, and that should make it slide in a lot easier. But now, problem solved. I did have one little issue where just before I started recording, I accidentally dropped this and it has broken this tab. But like I say, I could just reprint this because I discovered I don't have any super glue to fix that. But no biggie, like I say, I can either just reprint this, fix that. Fortunately, the whole idea behind this is it's very modular, so if one part breaks, it's very easy just to reprint it. So that's not too big of an issue. But as I said last time, now that we have done the main frame of the part, we're going to move on to the lid today and the tool drawer that goes in here. So I think the first thing we're going to do is make the lid. So I will move over to Fusion and we will get onto that. So let's do that. Right, so for creating the lid, I basically just went with one of a more simpler design. So first I made a simple sketch that just traces out the top path of the toolbox. I then extruded it out. Also, I've changed the colors to more or less what they should be when they print. Of course, then my next problem was getting the holes out for this. So first I just gave it a bit more of a back plate. Then what I did is can I edit this? So I used a cut, selected this part of the hinge as the tool, and then the target body as this one, so that it would remove wherever it intercedes, I think is the word. Basically, wherever the two would combine, it would remove it. I then did the same again for the second part. You can't see it. I then created sketches that follow along this bottom part. So it will just follow along this part with a little bit more room for tolerance. We'd extrude that into the part. See, like that. And then more or less the same again into that part. So now this section here is just a little bit wider than this one so that they will fit in nicely. I then created another sketch just to cut out this part so that when it hinges back, it's not going to collide with any of this part. I then smoothed off the edges a little bit, mirrored it, actually put a hole in the top, one so that I don't use a lot of filament, and two so that there's a little bit more room in the top, and then just added a few chamfers in just to make things look a little bit better. Then came around to the front, added that as the handle, made a little slope there, smoothing things off. I wanted it to print from this part to that part, so this should just help it layer up a little bit. As you can see, I also changed the angle a little bit. I think if I go to, I lowered the angle. So yeah, you can change this bit here. And I basically just lowered the sharpness of the angle so that as it prints, the layers aren't too steep that you end up with a lot of overhang. Cancel that. So yeah, very simple lid and all good. So let's get this over to Bambu Lab to get it printed. Okay, so now we're in Bambu Lab. Once again, it uses a different set of keybinds for moving around, which is always fun. So yeah, very simple, not going to change anything. So let's just give this a quick slice. This is going to take 1 hour, 57 minutes. It's not too bad. Quickly go through the layers, make sure there's nothing really wrong with it. Yep, looking good. But yeah, mostly concerned about is this being a bit too steep of an angle. But as you can see here, with each individual line, you just want to make sure that this gap isn't too big, but it doesn't look like we're going to have that problem. So yeah, let's get this sent off to the printer. Okay, and we're back. As you can see, it has printed out fairly well. I'm not too happy about how thin this segment is here, but I mean, it still has some strength behind it, so that's okay. Also, the whole nice smooth rad I have here, by just lowering down the angle of it, seems to have made it print a little bit easier than some of the other attempts I've had. So obviously I need to change the angle at which things print, but these slots look pretty useful, and I'm quite happy with the size of this handle compared to other ones I've made. So that is a definite improvement. So we'll grab the toolbox. So it should just fit into there. Perfect. It lines up fairly well, so that's good. And yeah, and then the hinge should be good. Oh, there we go. So that is the lid of it done. Obviously it's not holding in perfectly because of that broken point, but yeah, you put that on a shelf somewhere, and all you need to do is get some tools. You just lift that up, grab what you want, close it, job's a good one. So yeah, that's my first lid done. Probably could have made these segments here a little bit smaller just to give it a bit more of a snug fit. But one thing I was worried about is because the angle that it is rotating is a little bit higher than this, I was worried that this bit would end up hitting that and it would push it up. But we seem to have avoided that by putting just a bit of a recess in here and a recess here. So that has been rather successful. So now we're going to move on to creating the toolbox part. So let's go on to that. So when it came to creating the actual holder part for all the tools, the first thing I did was just get out a piece of paper, measured out the size of my toolbox and removed a few mil just so everything would fit in nicely. I then proceeded to, on the paper, roughly sketch out the size of the area. Then got all the tools I wanted, gave them a simple layout so that I could see whereabouts I could fit everything. In the end, I went with the 2 Allen keys, the nozzle cleaner, the lubricant, and the spare filament cutter. Then after all of those were laid out, I took each piece, used a pencil just to give me a good outline of them so that I could write down my measurements, move them out of the way, double checked inside the toolbox just to see how they'd look once they're in there, and they all look good. Then proceeded to use a vernier to give me some good rough measurements of them and all the sizes I would need to know. Wrote them all out for each and every piece before moving on to Fusion. So once I was in Fusion, the first thing I did was quickly create a plane at the bottom of the toolbox shelf part, then just created a rectangle using the sizes I knew, and then just extruded it out to my height and then moved it out of the way. Then created a second sketch on top, and then piece by piece I just slowly blocked out all the different tools and their sizes that I'd measured. I also was measuring them again whilst I was working. As you can see, I did have a few problems where I think I'd measured things a little bit wrong, but eventually everything turned out okay. So I got them all done, and once that was done, I just tried to smooth out and gave everything a bit of a radius around it, just to make things seem a bit more smooth, I guess. Then extruded each one down a few mil, and then basically I measured the depth of the part, then extruded it down a few mil extra just so that they'd fit flush. I then proceeded to cut out small holes just so I would have something to put my finger in when I wanted to take the part out, and then proceeded just to give it a bit of a radius at the bottom to make it look a bit nicer. Gave it a little bit of a chamfer around the edge just so that when it prints, if there's any elephant footing, it shouldn't mean that it won't fit inside the toolbox. And then it was done to send off to Fusion. Okay, so now that we have the shelf in Bambu Lab, not Fusion actually, let's first just auto orient it so it's flat on the build plate. Yeah, everything's looking good. There is one thing I'm going to try. If I go to quality, is it quality? No. Speed, strength. I am looking for ironing. I'm probably missing it. Can I search? No. 1 second. Ah, never mind. There it is. So I'm going to go for the topmost surface ironing because I want to try and get this to be nice and smooth here. So I feel like that would give it a good finish. So yeah, let's give that a slice. Actually, first of all, let's go back to prepare. I'm going to have this be a nice black, I think. Oh, there we go. So yeah, that's going to be the nice black I have. Okay, so let's just give this a slice. So that's saying 2 hours and 45 minutes. Okay. Out of curiosity, what would it be if there was no ironing? No ironing. So it was 2 hours 45, and that is 2 hours 15. Okay, so that's adding half an hour extra on. But let's give it a try. Topmost surface, right? And yeah, slice. Okay, let's get this sent off to the printer and see what happens. Okay, so that is the toolbox like top part done. Yeah, it came out looking pretty all right. No massive errors. Although, as I said, I did try the ironing. I don't know if you will see this on camera. I might need to get another close-up shot. But the ironing really hasn't come out as I'd expected. It's given it quite a bit of a rough top finish. So I might not use that much in the future, or find out what settings I need to change to get a bit more of a better finish. And unfortunately, so this is the part that comes with the printer, I seem to have made things, I missed out this part somehow, and it's a bit of a tight fit around here. So they do fit in, but it seems like there's just a few mil between that really should have been added in as a tolerance. But fortunately, as a concept, it works pretty well. So I could right now just go to the Fusion file, add a little bit more into it, and then reprint it. So that's not too big of an issue. And once again, because it's not been printed as part of the toolbox, it's not like I've wasted an entire print. So that is really good. I am definitely proud of this. I've learned now that if I do want to fit non-printed items together, I definitely need to add more of a tolerance. But I like that. Maybe I wouldn't have made it a bit deeper, or maybe made this little finger bit a bit bigger, but it serves its purpose. So that is something I'm definitely happy with. And moving forward, I have learned my lesson regarding giving stuff just a little bit more space to move. But if we bring the toolbox in and I'll just take the lid off for now, actually. It does slot in perfectly. So I now have a toolbox to put away all my 3D printing tools. And of course I can put all these extra little nibbly bits in the drawer. However, there was something I did discover when designing this tool shelf. Take that out. That this part actually fits directly in. So I could just put all those in there, and all the tools can go in here. I was a bit annoyed at that, but once again, you know, okay, there's a lot less tools in this part, but I wasn't trying to fit everything in, and it was more of a proof of concept. So that's not the end of the world, and you know, I'm pretty happy with what I've done. So that's good. Maybe I might use this in the future and just have that in, and then I'll give that another shot. But once again, because I've now got a general toolbox design, if ever I need to store some tools or some little bits, all I really need to do is just reprint one out of these, redesign one of these, and I've got a toolbox. So at the end of the day, I am happy with the final result, and that's what matters. So let's just put all those bits in there, get that bit in, that in. I'll just leave that in there for now until I can fix that. Lid on, and there we are. Maybe if I just use that bit, just to give it a bit of support, line these up, put that in, get that back, and there we go. My own custom designed 3D printed toolbox. A few little errors, but nothing too major that can't be simply versioned out by the second time I print this. I'm definitely going to learn a bit more about ironing, try and get a better top finish. But yeah, so thank you for following along with this design. I know it's taken a fair few episodes, but I promise I've already got an idea for the next one, and Okay, sorry about that. Turns out a very loud plane decided to fly over just as I was finishing this off. As I was saying, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and comment if you've got any ideas or what you think, what I could do better. I'm always open to suggestions. But yes, thank you. As I said, next time, hopefully I'll do something without so many hard edges, because I've already got an idea coming down the pipe, which should be something a lot more interesting, hopefully. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.